Hey guys, what is up? John and Steph here from Fly8MikeAlpha.com here today to answer the question, exactly how much does it change the performance of your airplane, particularly this Bearhawk Patrol, flying it light versus heavy? How much does it change the performance of an airplane?
Significantly.
When you add weight to it, it changes it significantly, some arbitrary amount. So we're going to fly this thing nice and light, we're going to fly it nice and heavy, we're going to find out exactly how much that changes the takeoff roll, the climb rate, the cruise speed, the stall speed, all of that stuff. We're going to find that out right now. We're going to do this as short as we can. I'm expecting a pretty short takeoff, not necessarily the shortest landing because we are at a very far forward CG right now. We are as light as we can get this thing. I got my flip-flops on right now. We are at about 1440 on our weight as we sit right now, fully loaded with fuel and everything in here. 1440, and this airplane has a gross weight of 2,000 pounds. Let's go ahead and taxi up to this line over here. We'll see how short we can get this thing off. I'm hoping for under 100 feet. Now, in addition to this takeoff, we're also going to be timing our time to climb. So how long does it take from us to get from the ground on up to 1,000 feet from the time we throw the power forward until we are at 1,000 feet. We will see here in just one moment. Let's go ahead and bring in a little bit of power. 10 flap for our best possible takeoff performance. I'm actually going to pull flap to yank us off the ground here. Adding in power. Tail is already up. Ooh, we are light. And here we go. And 3. So now we're picking up speed, we're kind of still hanging in ground effect there, and there is our VY. Let's raise that nose on up. Nice climb angle, about 20 degrees, maybe 25 degrees even. Well, looks like about 22 is going to be real happy for us there. And we are climbing, close to 2,000 feet a minute is what we're pegged at right now. We'll keep full power in there as we're coming up, and we'll throttle back once we hit 1,000 feet. Showing us a flight time now of 30 seconds so far. And 1,000. All right, now it is time to come in for the landing. This landing is probably not going to be that short because we are awful nose heavy. So I'm not going to be able to use the brakes quite as much as I'd like to. If I was really doing this for a sole competition, my best possible takeoff and landing performance combined would actually be to put about 30 to 50 pounds of lead right on that tailwheel spring, right in the very aft part of the airplane there, to get my CG moved to a more middle stance, a more happy place. And the further after your CG, the better your, I guess, your stall, takeoff, and landing performance might be, at least your landing performance anyways. But with this airplane, it's made to have a lot of weight in back. Obviously, you're meant to have a passenger, you're meant to have some gear in back. So just one person flying it empty, although it's great takeoff performance like you just saw, we're not going to be able to land real short, and it's pretty far forward on the CG. All right, there's our line. Now, it's also important to mention that we're doing this without any exterior cameras. So I know you guys are used to seeing some cameras on the outside of the airplane for some cool views. We're doing this without any exterior cameras because we don't want any of our camera gear or any of our mounts out there to affect the performance of the airplane. So we're trying to do this as clean as possible. Start slowing her down here a little bit. Boy, we are really on the forward edge of that CG. It is not the most fun to fly with that forward CG there. At least there's better visibility over the nose. And let's see what we're able to do here. Wow. All right.
And next up is the time to climb from 0 on up to 3,500 feet, AGL, both light and heavy.
All right, our flight time counter is reset. Realistically, for a normal takeoff, no flaps, because flaps are nothing but drag, really. They will pop you off the ground sooner. They're not going to help you climb crazy. So let's go ahead and get this tail up, bring some power in, and let's go.
So on the left-hand side of the screen, you see the airplane weighing in at 1,440 pounds, and then on the right-hand side of the screen, you see the airplane weighing in at 2,000 pounds. That was after we flew it over to Homer, picked up some freight, fueled it all the way up, and this is the time-lapse of it going on up to 3,500 feet AGL. Homer is about 100 feet elevation where we started, so we'll go up to 3,600 on the right side of the screen. For the left side, for the light side, what we saw was 2 minutes and 50 seconds to get up to 3,500 feet AGL, an average of 1,235 feet per minute climb rate from sea level all the way up to 3,500 feet AGL. And for a heavy test, we saw 4 minutes and 35 seconds for an average of 765 feet per minute, about a 40% reduction in climb rate.
All right, so first priority up here is going to be to find the wind. We need to find the wind. And we're going to do our slow flight first. That's going to give us a nice chance to cool down this engine after that long climb. up here to 3,500 feet. So right now, my little computer screen is telling me it's coming down at 230. Let's go ahead and try heading over that direction and see if it's correct. The computer screen is figuring the wind direction based on the ground speed, based on our heading, based on what it's getting for the pitot-static system. No pitot-static system is perfect, and pitot-static errors lead to this guy not being super accurate. So we're going to do a little bit of testing here ourselves to figure out what our slowest ground speed really is. Just getting a rough idea here. It appears to me, actually, what this thing's really telling me here is, no, there's not much of a headwind out here at all. If it keeps changing its mind like that, there's very little wind aloft here at 3,500, because it certainly is not swinging around like that. Give it a moment here to catch up. Alright, so we got that guy set for 280. We can see very little in the way of winds aloft. We're going to go ahead and start slowing this guy down right here at about 3,500 and see what the slowest speed we can possibly fly really is. And now, of course, it's showing a tailwind. That's because, well, our pitot tube is not very accurate. These crazy high angles back. No, we're not doing 20 miles per hour through the air. We can see our ground speed of 40 miles per hour. That's a lot more accurate there. And so we can see 40 miles per hour. Gonna bring in a little bit of power here, about 13 inches. That's a reasonable amount of power to have coming into land with a normal CG anyways. We can see 37 miles per hour, and there's the brake. So 37 miles per hour is the brake. Let's go ahead and flip around 180 degrees. Ignore whatever this guy says because it's totally inaccurate because it's getting bad information from our pitot tube. Again, we're not doing 20 miles. We're not doing 0. We're not a helicopter, right? So there we are at 39. Not much wind up here at all today, although I do need to take some power off there. I got a little excited with that. Come back to a normal power setting for approach, about 13 inches. Have to lower the nose to accommodate for that a little bit, picking up some speed there. Now we can raise our nose right up to the stall. 40 miles per hour, 39. Alright, there's the brake at 39. So, broke at 37, broke at 39. We'll call that 38 mile per hour stall speed with full flap, 13 inches of manifold pressure, outer ground effect up here, 3,500, 38 mile per hour stall speed, super lightweight like that. Alright, there we are, about 13 inches manifold pressure, 40 flap. Nice approach power setting. And we're coming down here, we're at 260 degrees. We see 43 miles per hour, 41 miles per hour over the ground. Getting pretty mushy here, and there's the buffet and brake at 41. Go ahead and spin her around here and see what she does to do. Go in the other direction. Come back to 13 inches manifold pressure, letting that nose come down. (13 inches of manifold pressure, 49 miles per hour going this direction. Get mushy, and there's the brake at 49. Now let's go ahead and clean this guy up and try that same thing. We're going to use that 100 heading, and we're going to use the 280 heading, and we're going to see how fast this guy goes here at 3,500 feet. So what is our top speed? Remember, we don't have any pretty views for you today because we took all the cameras off of the outside of the airplane. No camera mounts out there, just cameras inside the airplane, so there's no extra drag out there affecting our wings. Alright, what were we seeing? We're seeing 131 miles per hour here. A little bit of a descent there, so let's try to level off. 3580, level 132, 2400, RPM, 24 inches manifold pressure, 11.5 gallons per hour, 131. Let's go ahead and see what we do at more of a reasonable power setting, like 23 squared, or even, yeah, 22 inches, 2300 RPM, 10 gallons per hour. Let's see what we're getting here for a cruise speed. We saw about 131, 132 there on the 100 heading. Now we're seeing about 125. I'd say about 125 is pretty steady there, right? 125. Let's go ahead and flip this guy around. Clear left, clear right, coming right. All right, and very little wind up here today. We can see we're getting, about 122. That's 22 inches of manifold pressure, 2300 RPM, 10 gallons per hour. We're in level flight right about 3,500 feet, seeing about 122. Back there to 132 miles per hour. No, pretty solid, 132 mile per hour airplane. We're at 3,500. It's a pretty average cruise altitude for the airplane. All right, we're going to bug our heading here of 080, and this is where we're going to go ahead and throttle up here to 22 inches, 2,300 RPM. See what kind of speed we get out of the airplane, just like we were doing that before. 22 inches, 2,300 RPM. Nice level flight here, showing that we have a little bit of a tailwind. And we're seeing about 123, 122 miles per hour there. So 122, 123 miles per hour. Let's call it 123. Let's spin around 180 degrees here. Check it, clear left, clear right. All right, and we're on that 260 heading now, 180 degrees opposite. Come back to 22 inches, 2,300 RPM. About 10 gallons per hour there. Nice normal cruise setting. And we're seeing 120 miles per hour going this direction. Other direction we were seeing about 122-ish. Now we're going to be up there at about 11.5 gallons per hour. So we're cruising along here, 11.5 gallons per hour, seeing about 127 over the ground. 127 miles over the ground, 125, somewhere in there, 125 to 127. Let's just average out, call it about 126. We'll call it 126 over the ground at 3,500 feet at 11.5 gallons per hour. Let's go ahead and spin her around, and we'll do that same test going the other direction. 2,400 RPM, 24 inches manifold pressure, about 11.5 gallons per hour. Here, right around 3,500 feet. And what are we getting for a speed? Settling in here to about, oh, we see 132, 133. Leveling out here. All right, 11.6 gallons per hour, 135 miles per hour. And the other direction we're doing about 126, 125. Let's just call it about 130 miles per hour, 131. About the same. So really, adding all that weight, adding 500 pounds of weight plus to the airplane did not change our cruise speed that much, really. Our top end speeds that much at all. All right, here's our gross weight takeoff. We're taxiing up to the line. We'll see if we can even get our tail off the ground. Get our flight counter reset, and this will be time to climb to 1,000 feet. Can we get our tail up? Almost! And the tail's back down. Come on, tail get up, tail get up, tail get up. And we're going back down. And now we're climbing. Almost 2,000 feet, 50 seconds into flight here. And there we are, that is 1,060 seconds into flight. Coming back around, let's do this landing. Solovia traffic, red Bearhawk, left base to final 34, Solovia. Ooh, a little squirrely on the winds there.
Okay, so summary here, right? When we were light, we're 1,440 pounds. When we were heavy, we're 2,000 pounds. We added 560 pounds to the airplane. What do we see taking off from 0 to 1,000 feet? So we saw a 1,600 foot per minute climb rate from 0 to 1,000 feet. And then when we were heavy at 2,000 pounds, we saw 1,000 foot per minute average. Now, when somebody tells me, oh, my airplane climbs at 2,500 feet per minute, I'm like, yeah, whatever. I just don't care about that spec you just told me. Or somebody shows me a spec sheet that says, this airplane climbs at 2,000 feet per minute. I'm like, yeah, no, what I want to see is what's the average climb rate from sea level to 1,000 feet. I want to see real numbers. And by the way, what was in the airplane when they did that test? Was it that gross weight? Was it just one average guy flying it with half tanks? How did they do that actual test? Sure, I saw on takeoff 2,000 feet a minute for a moment there, but really my average when I was light was 1,620 feet per minute when I was as light as you could possibly make this airplane. The airplane's 1230 empty. It has no insulation. It has one radio, simple panel, really no interior, so it's as light as it's going to get. It does have a starting system, of course. It has a battery, an alternator. It has a starter. You could take that stuff out, but I don't really want to hand prop it, so we have that EarthX battery that's nice and light in there. You're not going to be able to really pull 100 pounds of weight out of this airplane and make it much lighter. So really, flying with 10 gallons of gas and basically nothing else and tiny me in there, I'd say that's about as light as you're going to get the airplane. Now for actual takeoff and landing numbers, we saw a 155 foot landing on the first go around when we were light and 85 foot takeoff when we were nice and light. Once we got a little heavier there, we saw a 280 foot takeoff, about a 330% increase, and then we saw a 175 foot landing. Really hitting those brakes, tires spread out a little bit as they kind of skidded a little bit there. Definitely heavy, definitely 2,000 pound landing. And that's as slow as you can come in. We saw a 38 mile per hour stall speed when we were light up high there. We saw a 45 mile per hour stall speed, a 7 mile per hour increase in stall speed by adding that 560 pounds. It's going to happen within the airplane. That is why we do not fly indicated airspeeds on approach when we're flying in the backcountry, because our weight changes based on how much fuel we have a person with us, cargo, etc. So we fly power and pitch settings, right? So power and pitch, certain attitudes is what we fly on approach. We don't worry about our airspeed. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to really ballpark a 20 to 0 mile per hour indicated airspeed anyways. You can see that indicated airspeed at these angles of attack, really not that reliable anyways. So the other thing we saw, besides that 1,600 foot per minute climb when we were light and 1,000 foot per minute climb when we were heavy, about a 40% reduction in climb rate. Well, same thing from 0 to 3,500 feet. So somebody says, oh, my airplane climbs at 2,500 feet a minute. I doubt it does that all the way up to 3,500 feet. What does it actually do from 0 to 4,000 feet or 0 to 2,000 feet or 0 to 10,000 feet? How long does it take you to get there? Can you even use climb power settings without overheating your engine? One thing about the Bearhawk, it has a nice tight cowling, really efficient, climbs really well and cools really well when you're in cruise flight going fast. We noticed in Florida, New Mexico, Utah, Arizona, at the higher, hotter altitudes, and just in Florida at sea level, but when it was warm out in April, that, yeah, we couldn't even climb 2,500 feet without getting cylinder head temps up over 400 degrees, approaching 440, 450. We had to actually come back off 25 squared, level off, and let the engine cool down. Now it works fine up here in Alaska, and it's totally going to work fine in January, but something to consider, does your airplane really climb that fast if you can't actually use that power because your engine cowling is pretty tight or because your engine's producing so much heat and you can't get rid of it? So you can make some mods to the cowling to allow for better airflow. For the most part, it works just fine, especially up here in Alaska, where we're at sea level, we have pretty cool air year round, and we are able to climb pretty well above any obstacle. Most of our flying doesn't involve jumping over top mountains, having to climb 5,000 or 10,000 feet. A lot of our stuff is drainage flying down low, where we don't really see ourselves climbing above 3,000 feet anyways. So ultimately, from 0 to 3,500 feet, we saw about 1,235 feet per minute when we were light average, and we saw an average about 765 feet per minute when we were pretty heavy there at 2,000 pounds. Once again, does my airplane climb at 1,000 feet per minute? I would tell you all day long my airplane climbs at 1,000 feet per minute, if not more. But does it climb at 1,000 feet per minute at gross from 0 to 3,500? No, it doesn't. It doesn't do that at all. Does it take off in 250 feet? Well, not at gross, because we saw a 280 foot takeoff with about 6 to 8 knots of wind on the nose coming down the runway at that point, and our 175 foot landing at gross was with some wind blowing down the runway. Again, 45 mile per hour stall speed when we were heavy at 2,000 pounds, 38 mile per hour stall speed when we were light. So what's our realistic landing speed? You're going to probably want to add a mile or 2 or 3 over that for a wheel touching speed. No, you're not going to be stalling the airplane in right there every single time with power on and 13 inches of manifold pressure to get those same numbers that we saw up high when we were using 13 inches of manifold pressure to kind of hang it on the prop a little bit to find those stall speeds. No, you're going to be a few miles per hour over that when your wheels are actually touching. And those are really 3-point attitude landings with a tailwheel touching first or really close to touching first. Not much forward visibility, so if you want to consider doing a wheel landing or something with a little bit better forward visibility, we're coming in at 10, 12 degree deck angle and possibly pitching up to about 15 degrees right there as we're touching, kind of stalling the airplane onto the ground. If you're going to be coming in, say, at 5 degrees, nose up, 5 degree pitch attitude, well, you're going to be coming in a lot faster, all right? So figure a realistic touchdown speed in this Bearhawk Patrol of being somewhere in the mid 40s-ish when you're really light, and probably in the high 40s, low 50s when you're heavy, possibly a little more, especially if there's any swirly winds, you might be adding a little bit. Realistically, 50, low 50s is what you're going to be seeing when you're at full gross weight coming in there. We were seeing a little bit slower, but again, 6 to 8 knots of wind blowing down the runway, so that really helped us out there. Overall, what is the idea here? Spec sheets develop more questions than they do answers. Whenever I look at a spec sheet for a Bearhawk, a Kit Fox, a Cub Crafters aircraft, Just Aircraft, Rands, any of those manufacturers out there, they're all great airplanes, but spec sheets raise more questions in my mind than it really does answers ever. Spec sheets are not actually how your airplane is going to perform. How it's going to perform is how it does in real life when you do comparison videos like this, and that's what I really wish there was more out there. So if you want to pick between a Carbon Cub or a Kit Fox or a Bearhawk or a Maul or a Husky, well, you need to see real world numbers, not just a spec sheet, because there's a lot of asterisks, or there should be a lot of asterisks, with any spec sheet. The spec sheet that you'll find on the Bearhawk website for the Patrol, is that the same specs that we see in our Patrol? No, not really. So is it wrong? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know how they came up with those numbers, but it's certainly not the numbers that we see flying ours around. Finally, on the top end, cruising at 10 gallons per hour, an econ cruise setting of 22 inches and 2,300 RPM at 3,500 feet, we saw an average ground speed there of about 123.5 miles per hour. And then spooling it up to 24 squared, 24 inches manifold pressure, 2,400 RPM, 11.5 gallons per hour, that's 75% power. We saw about 131, 132 miles per hour when we were light. When we were heavy, we saw those numbers come down to about 121.5 and about 130.5. So what does that really mean? Well, when we're heavy, we only lost about a mile or two per hour, and the airplane realistically cruises about 131 miles per hour or so at 3,500 feet density altitude. And this was a pretty standard day, about as close to standard as you could get here in Alaska, 59 degrees at the surface, about 299 on the altimeter. So these are the realistic numbers. If you bring the airplane down to sea level, yeah, it's going to cruise a little bit slower. If you bring it up to 8,500 feet, yeah, add a few miles per hour, it's going to go a little faster. We do have stall speed VGs across our wings. We took off all the camera mounts, so there's no extra drag. We do have bush tires. We got those little 26-inch Goodyears, small bush tires, but bush tires, so it causes a little bit more drag than, say, a 6x6 tire. So maybe that's how they come up with some of those numbers. But certainly if you're going to be flying around on 31-inch bush wheels with stall speed VGs, maybe put a GoPro out there and fly around at gross weight, you're going to be seeing slower numbers, right? So overall, about 131 mile per hour airplane is what I would say cruises at 75% power. And what's a stall speed? Oh, probably reasonably about 40 some miles per hour, I would call it, maybe 45 at gross weight for sure. And what's a realistic landing speed? Oh, in the high 40s, low 50s-ish, somewhere in there. Perhaps if you want some better forward visibility, it'll definitely be in the low 50s. Those are the specs that we're seeing on our Bearhawk Patrol. If you guys have a Bearhawk Patrol, definitely make a video about it. If you have a Bearhawk 4-place, or a Carbon Cub, or a Husky, or a Kit Fox, or anything, put together a spec video on it. Let everybody else see what it really does when you load it empty, when you load it heavy, and so on. That's the real numbers. That's what's kind of cool, to really compare all these airplanes and figure out what airplane is right for you, because the Bearhawk Patrol is an awesome airplane, and I'm really happy with it, and it fits our mission pretty well. There's other missions that a Kit Fox might fit better, or that a Carbon Cub might fit better, and the Bearhawk may not be the right fit for that mission. So every airplane is mission specific. Decide what your mission is before you spend 3 years of your life building an airplane for an airplane that you think fits your mission, and then turns out that spec sheet wasn't 100%. Don't waste 3 years building an airplane until you actually verify all those specs. That's it for this video, guys. If you have any questions, leave it in the comments below. Stay tuned for more videos coming from Alaska, flying the Bearhawk around here this summer. Epic summer. Definitely hit that subscribe button, hit that little bell so you get notified when we post those latest videos. And as always, guys, if you cannot fly every day, fly at MikeAlpha.com. Be safe out there.